Thank you to the National Association for Primary Education for their long-term support of the Education on Fire podcast. To get a free e-copy of their professional journal, Primary First, please go to nape.org.uk/journal. That's nape.org.uk/journal. Hello, my name is Mark Taylor and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place for creative and inspiring learning from around the world. Listen to teachers, parents and mentors share how they are supporting children to live their best authentic life and are proving to be a guiding light to us all. Hello, welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast. Thank you so much for being here. This week I'd like to ask for your help, for your input really. Education on Fire is now at a kind of a crossroads in terms of how we develop and how we go forward. When we first started back in December 2016, I was doing episodes in themed seasons from ICT to computing to PE, and it all fit very, very well and really kind of embraced the kind of sharing, creative and inspiring learning within our schools. But since then, it's really developed. I've had people wanting to come on the show and share other bits of information and creative and inspiring learning, which is certainly outside of the UK parameters, but also different types of education, different ways of learning, which really, I think, as from last week's episode, that kind of embracing personalised learning really spoke to me. It's really something which I found incredibly important. Now, we're also releasing our bonus episodes, which are previously released shows from the Learning on Fire podcast, which we were producing in 2019 into 2020. And we're releasing those as bonus episodes on Friday, so you can obviously hear those as well. And that gives you another sort of take on exactly the type of learning from people who are living life on their terms and reverse engineering that back into exactly what their education experience is like, but how they managed to get to a point where they could live life on their terms, the experience they were given, best advice, resources, all of that kind of thing. Now, we've been recording many episodes for the next few weeks. I think we're something like 12 weeks ahead now, so we've got loads of great content to bring to you. But I wanted to ask your input really in terms of what it is that you really like to listen to, because this is often me sharing stuff with you, things which I think I get the odd little bit of feedback from people who email, which is fantastic. I'd love to hear what you think. But would you like me to talk more myself, just a few more solo shows so that we can actually get my opinions out there and we can bat ideas backwards and forwards? Do you like the interview process and the rapport that we have with our guests? Would you rather have more solo shows, just interview shows, a combination of both, or maybe even having an extra show where I can do a solo show but keep the interviews going on a Monday? So I'd really like to understand what it is that really helps you, which supports you. That's why we're here, to give you that kind of strength and depth in terms of what creative and inspiring learning is. But I also know that people want a little bit more definition sometimes. It sounds quite ethereal, the whole idea of creative and inspiring learning. Sometimes we just want to know, how a resource can help us learn, or how this particular thing can save us time, or how a piece of information can just sort of get us from A to B in the quickest possible way. So is it a combination of all of those things? Do you actually want a few more of those sort of really sort of strategic ideas of how that can work for you? And also let me know whether you're a teacher listening or whether you're a parent listening. We were very sort of teacher school focused to begin with, but now I know there are lots of parents listening who are trying to support their children in lots of different ways. A lot of the things that we cover things from being able to homeschool or be able to actually help the learning process outside of school. And this is an interesting thing for me, because I also know that education as a whole is kind of being mixed up in my mind in terms of what schooling is actually there for. Originally, I always thought, it's there to give everyone a starting point. It's there to give everyone the best idea of what learning is all about by professionals in an environment which is there to help children to thrive. But we know that that's not always the case. There are some great schools out there and there are some poor schools there. And sometimes children get the best education at home, either from homeschooling or from very supportive families. Some children don't have supportive families, so the school is the most important thing. And I kind of think that, it really goes hand in hand. It's a bit of everybody that's involved in a child's life that has that input. And again, that's why I keep going back to this idea of personalised learning, because it's what every person needs is the most important thing. And that comes in so many different facets. And that's why I want to make sure that what I'm delivering for you is something which you think is the most important thing for the children in your life. What is that? Please let me know. Just email me, mark@educationonfire.com, and let me know what you think. Is it detailed stuff about things happening in schools? Is it about learning generally? Is it a combination of both? I mean, that's what really fires me up. But I really want to make sure that I'm getting this exactly right for you as we start to plan, certainly the end of this year, but it's all going into 2021, so that we can really put all this stuff in place to make sure that you get the best listening experience and the best value that we possibly can. Now, of course, I live in the UK, and that's what I know from an education point of view. I'm also the Vice Chair of the National Association for Primary Education, so I have a hand in that primary education foot. I have 3 teenagers at home, so I have a really good idea about what happens in the secondary school world as well. So I'd have quite a broad knowledge of all of these different things. And the podcast is now listened to in 131 countries around the world. So what was very much a UK-based podcast to begin with is now incredibly global. And while the UK still takes up the majority of the audience in terms of percentages, there's a lot of people in the US, a lot of people in Australia, and a lot more people coming through in Asia and Africa as well. So it's really becoming a sort of a global idea of what education is. And so I'm also aware that I want to make sure that the content that we do can be as useful for as many people as possible. So wherever you're listening to in the world, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. And get in touch, even if it's just to say, hi, this is who I am, this is where I'm listening from, and what you're getting out of it, and the sorts of things which would really help you move forward, whether it's the content that you want to help you as a teacher, whether it's content to help you as a parent, whether it's just being able to create the environment that you want for the children in your life, in whichever way that happens to be. Please do get in touch and let me know. Now, you also know that we have this GoFundMe campaign going on to be able to bring some of the great advice and wisdom and resources all together in a book that I'd like to gift to children. Now, this is just really the starting point. I want to make sure that children have this sort of resource which makes them think, look, there's this whole world out here. There's this whole way that people have managed to really live life on their terms. And these are some of the important factors which have got them to that point. But what I'm really keen on is knowing that actually learning is about an environment. It's about an environment of the school. It's about an environment at home, but it's actually about the environment that every child has to learn, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a group of people that they're working with, whether it's actually their passion in life. For me, it was always surrounding myself with my friends, doing music, being able to perform, have concerts, go on tours. All of those kind of things that created the environment for me, enabled me to thrive. I know other people, it's sport, it might be science, it might be any particular subject, any particular thing which you get into that can really help. And that's your relationship that you're going to have with children. And whatever we can do to kind of support you to create that environment so that children can feel like everything is exciting. I talk a lot about how wonderful it is to watch smaller children to thrive, to be inspired, to want to learn, when they're young, toddlers going into then 4, 5, 6 years old, just really loving what they're doing. And then as they then start to get older, go into secondary school, life starts to go on, the feeling of the testing and the ongoing learning, not in an exciting way, but in a way that a government has decided that they have to learn. And we know that starts to take its toll, and it certainly doesn't work for all children in any shape or form. And what do we do for those people? How do we tell them or explain to them that you have to go and be in this environment which is actually harming you in so many ways? We can see it by your well-being and the way that you're showing up in the world, but that despite that, we can still make your learning experience as great as it possibly can be. And I think that's our job, and that's why, like I said, I'm standing on two sides of the track here. the school environment, but the parental environment and the community environment. But actually at the centre of that, it's the overall environment for our children. And that's what I'm passionate about. And whether I'm sharing information about school-related things or parent-related things or community-related things, it's that essence. That's the start, the beginning, the end, and everything in between that really gets me fired up and really passionate. It's the reason I was a musician. It's the reason that it kept me sane and going as I was growing up, and it's the reason I've had such an amazing professional career and been able to perform all around the world. And I want to be able to share just that idea of living that kind of life with all of you and bring together all these amazing guests and share their input and their expertise as we go forward as well. So thanks so much for listening. Next week, we're going to get back on with all of the interviews that I've been doing. But as I said, please get in contact. Tell me what it is that you like. Tell me the sorts of things that you would find really supportive and interesting. And we're going to gear that towards exactly what you need. Give me an email, mark@educationonfire.com, and I'll be delighted to hear from you. If you want to support the GoFundMe campaign, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Whether it's donating money or whether it's actually sharing it within your friends and your family, just go to educationonfire.com/book and it tells you everything that we've got going on there. Thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait to share even more fantastic information to support you and the children in your life going forward. Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.